12 seasons, he was the defensive soul of the Showtime Lakers, the guy Pat Riley sent to shut down the other team's best player night after night. He's won championships as a coach in the WNBA and the G League, and just last year helped lead Cal State LA to the best season in their history. More importantly, he's a cancer survivor, one of the most respected minds in the game. It is an absolute honor to welcome the one and only Cooper, Michael Cooper. He's a five-time NBA champ, Defensive Player of the Year, and as of last year, Naismith Basketball Hall of Famer. No other, Mr. Cooper, Michael Cooper, but also, got WNBA championship, talked about that. But my man dropped a book. I need an autographed copy, of course. How you doing? Thank you for joining us. Hope all is well. But I wanted to dive into this really quick. What was the impetus behind the book and what made you really want to do it?
First of all, thank you, Jimmy, for having me on the show, man. You know what? I've been, as basketball players or athletes, you just kind of go through your career. And I had been thinking about doing it like 10 years ago. But then when everything just started evolving and especially when the Hall of Fame came calling and I finally got into there, and then with the Lakers retiring my jersey, I felt that I had something to say. But it's been the book has been in the works in my mind for the last 10 years, but for the last 5 years, things just started coming around, and then, it exploded in 24.
So what was but behind it? Because a lot of people want to write books. A lot of people want to put things out there, but you have a unique story too. So kind of how were you able to gather all of this information and know exactly what you really needed to put in the book? Because you lived through maybe some of the best era of basketball we've had. You got a lot of stories personally, professionally, but how did you narrow down kind of the subject matter?
Jim, you know what? There's a cliche that goes around that says, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And I used to hear that all the time. And I was like, okay, you just go through those mundane moments and stuff like that. But you know what? My career started out very lowly, wasn't a big-time college player, came in. All I wanted to do was to play in the NBA, which considered the best basketball players, and to try to make a little bit of money to help my family out. And as I was going through that whole progression, and I finally get there, and then all of this starts happening. And then along the way, I had developed this thing that I call Coop's 5 Ds. Mm-hmm. They are determination, dedication, desire, discipline, and decision-making. And those things really helped me on the court when I was playing basketball. People used to tell me I was too skinny. I couldn't do this, couldn't do that. But I stayed adhered to those 5 Ds, and I had made the decision I was going to be an NBA basketball player. And people, for me, those 5 Ds can help anyone in any aspect of their life, as far as being a good student in the classroom. When people tell you that you can't do this or you can't do that, those 5 Ds have helped me. So that was kind of like the purpose of doing it, because, there are so many people in this world that are underappreciated and overlooked. And those 5 Ds helped me. And I felt that the book, putting those in the book and in the context of how it helped me get to where I am today, being on your show, JJ, I felt that people could benefit from that and had to hear that.
Well, speaking of context, let's back up, because those 5 Ds in your life began a long time ago when you were diagnosed, when you had a severe knee injury when you were younger, right?
Yes.
And
yes, all the way back.
All the way back.
5 to 6 years old.
But that's right. But your doctor told you may not ever really walk, right? Was that it? Was that kind
I
of
was supposed to walk again. See? Being a skinny guy, my grandmother prayed for me all that night. I remember that, and she kept me up, wouldn't let me sleep because she thought I'd go into a coma if I went to sleep. So I lost so much blood. But yeah, when they told me that I'd never walk again, obviously through the power of prayer, my grandmother, very religious woman, and I have to carry that religion with me now in my life. When that happened, not only was I able to walk, JJ, being a basketball player, that was my best jumping leg. It was my left leg. So, all of that just happened. And those 5 Ds, again, played a big part into that as I look back on things.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, because you had to challenge yourself kind of going through getting cut in high school, going through that same kind of story, not good enough, too skinny, but you had to prove yourself. When did it hit you that the Michael Cooper that really ultimately became the Hall of Fame player, everybody's a star, everybody wants to do this, I'm going to lock in and find out that, find a role for myself on the defensive end? Was that something that kind of started a little bit earlier? Did you learn that a little bit later as you entered the league?
Well, those 5Ds helped me back in college because I had always thought about basketball, Jimmy, going to school as being an athlete student. I didn't think about being a student athlete. And until I became academically ineligible, my sophomore year, I had to go to junior college. My sophomore year, I messed up in the classroom and I couldn't play basketball. And that's when I felt there was a reality. I mean, I could go play on the streets and do all of that, but I couldn't play at a university. So when I rectified that situation of being a student athlete and carrying that on, that is what really emboldened those 5Ds for me, because now I could see the power in those 5Ds helping me off the court in the classroom. So now I make it to the pros. I get there. And when I got to the Lakers, Jimmy, I walk into Jerry West was my coach at the time. I walk in and he tells me, he says, Coop, I got Norm Nixon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamal Wilkes, ain't enough shots for you. So you better hone in on that defense. And that's how I stuck with it. I had my college coach, Norm Ellenberger, was a defensive guru. And when I get to the pros, I said, okay, well, if I can't shoot the ball, let me hone my skills and put those 5Ds to work on me on the defensive end.
But okay, listen, I understand that too. And we're players. And you accepted your role. I mean, probably one of the best complimentary players of all time. I mean, additions to a team. The Lakers don't win without Michael Cooper and what you did, okay? But was there still a little bit of like, man, I can play some offense. I can still score the ball. Was it come on, man, we're playing. Was it a little bit of that, like, I just needed a little bit? Come on, man. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
I mean, in junior college, I averaged 24 points a game.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm telling you is when I got with the Lakers, you got Kareem, that gentleman behind me, shooting a sky hook. You had Norm Nixon, Jamal Wilkes, who had been with the Golden State Warriors and won a championship. Them guys is getting 25 shots a game. That's 75 shots there. And on any given night, Kareem's going to get more. So for me, I knew the shot was there, but I just felt that my need was going to be on the defensive end because everybody was so focused on the offensive end. And you know this, JJ, and I mean, you probably went up to some of the best defensive players. We can't stop anyone, but what we can do is make shots hard for you guys because you were a scorer. So I just felt like that was going to be my niche. That was going to be my need. That's what I had to do to stay on the Lakers team. And being a sixth man coming in the game most of the time is not for the offensive end. It was for the defensive end. So those 5Ds helped me. And again, like I said, I had made the decision to be a basketball player. I had to make a decision to be a good defensive player.
Well, let's go back. So you drafted, you get to L.A. I know you had a famous story with the first time you met Kareem. And he was working out, and he said something to you. What was that story about the first time you met Cat?
Well, I walk into the Loyola Marymount, and back then it wasn't a gym that it is today. It's so refurbished and really nice, but it was a little gym, and I'm looking, and I'm standing down there, and Kareem is shooting sky hooks, and he goes, "Rookie, what you looking at? Get your ass in there and get ready. We get ready to practice."
Really?
And it startled me. I mean, I grew up watching Kareem at UCLA, man. Lou Alcindor. Yep. So here he is, Kareem, and I'm like, wow, I kind of said I finally made it, but I had to make the team. But yeah, that was my first encounter with him. And you know what, JJ, Cap and I are the best of friends to this day. My birthday's April 15th. His birthday's April 16th. So I always knew there was going to be some synergy there.
So what was the biggest lessons? And Kareem was so good politically, academically. Of course, his basketball IQ was off the hook. But was there something that you really were able to learn and take away from him that maybe was off the court that helped you become the best sixth man that you can be on the court?
Well, his persistence to be at the best all the time. And the one thing that I learned from Kareem was when the season's over with, that doesn't mean basketball stops. And Kareem was, he practiced with the famous Bruce Lee and Kung Fu and all of that and yoga. And that's the one thing he taught me, Coop, you got to stay in shape all the time. And he even went so into our astrological signs. He says, Aries are rams. They're leaders. You got to stay in shape. And that was the one thing that I learned from him is that during the off season, you could take and most of the time we took a week off. But no, I was back to the drawing board. I got involved in yoga, stretching a lot, taking care of yourself, eating right, doing all the right things. So when the season rolled around, you're in better shape than everybody else who uses training camp to get into shape. We didn't use training camp to get into shape. We used training camp to get our game together.
It's interesting because Kareem it seems like monolithic, like this. Focus, the personality, when you get to know him, probably so. But then here comes Magic Johnson, kind of the opposite. The smile comes in, the vibrancy, everything else. But I know you talked about with Magic, you said you've never been around a player that's enjoyed the game as much as Magic. What does that mean? Break that down.
Well, that's just about, at the time the NBA was going through a real rough time and people just looked at it as a league that was scoring, a league that was about individuals, a league that was about trying to claim all the individuals so they can reap the benefit of money. When Magic Johnson came, Magic made it a fun sport to play again. Basketball's a game. That's why they call it a game. And Magic brought that unique aspect back. Even though it was at the professional setting, it was all about having fun. And yeah, they were totally polar opposite. Kareem was studious and just thought the basketball game, and Magic was about, hey man, we having fun out here. Let's go play, let's score, let's win. And he brought that winning attitude. So when you put those two together, and they got together so easily, what? People thought it was going to be oil and water, but it became margarine and bread. Because Magic just spread over the team, over Kareem, and he changed Kareem's outlook. And we knew Cat was going to always be there. We want him. But Magic, we used to have so much fun in practice, man, when he was there. Once Magic got in, it was just enjoyable to be around.
Well, that's a part of the leadership aspect of it, too. When people talk about leadership, it's not always telling people what to do, but it's also being able to read the room, and you handle each individual different because they have their different personalities. It seems like Magic, it wasn't fake. It wasn't phony. The personality, he enjoyed it, but he was a fierce competitor. I think people see that smile and Magic doing all the stuff, but that was a deep dive, fierce competitor within, Magic Johnson.
Well, you know what? Leaders sometimes lead by example, and that's what Magic did. He came in, and his smile was infectious, but you know what? Sometimes the way he's smiling caught you off guard. But you got to remember, Magic came from Michigan State, 79, they won a championship. So that's all he knew was winning championships, even going back to Everett High School. So when he brought that to the NBA and brought that to our team, and you know what, he'd yell at you sometimes, but again, Magic was going to lead by example. We run suicide, whatever running thing we had to do, 3-player weave. Magic was always first, second, or third. And he was always trying to be first, but obviously myself and Byron Scott were a little bit faster, but he was going to always get out there and run as hard as he could. He was the first one to practice, the last one to leave, training camp, whatever we did, any meetings we had, he was always there first. So it wasn't about the talk. And sometimes people tell you talk is cheap. Yes, it is, because if you just talk in bravado and you don't walk the walk, ain't nobody gonna follow you. But Magic he talked the talk and he walked the walk, and he was always there. And he was the reason why we became the team of the 80s, because he was not gonna let that be any other way.
Listen, it's funny because your team, you had individuals that had something that always stood out. Kareem had the sky hook with the goggles. James Worthy had the goggles. Magic had the smile and the passes. But you had something, too, that stood out, which was those high socks, the double high socks. And everybody thought that, that was a fashion statement, but it was more to that high sock story than just putting on double socks and it's white on camera and people could see you, right? What was behind it?
Yeah. Well, what was behind it is, going back to high school in 1974, my grandmother had glaucoma real bad. And being with a team of all African-Americans, black players, she goes, Michael, you have to do something to distinguish yourself so I can tell you from the other players. So that's when I came up, okay, let me pull my socks up high. I wore 2 pair of high white socks. I wore 2 white sweatbands. And I wore my strings out on my shorts. And I had the best game of my career. I had 24 points, 15 rebounds. We won that game. It was a televised game on TV. First high school game of the week basketball in like 5 or 6 years at that time. And I said, you know what? I'm sticking with this. And I took that from high school to college all the way to the pros.
Bro, that's all I remember growing up watching the Lakers, because I see you running with the socks and I see the Coop a little, but I see the defense. but it stood out. And it kind of made sense to me because I know you didn't do it for that purpose, but it just fell in line with the Showtime Lakers. You know, you see Coop out there with those high socks. It just felt like LA. It felt like something special. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of guys wore those socks like that back. You doubled them up too, right? How many pair did you have on?
Well, I came in the league wearing 2 pair.
Okay.
And I went out of the league wearing 4. But then my legs, my calves were skinny. My legs were skinny. So with the high socks made my legs look bigger. So that was another reason why I kept them high socks going.
So it was always a little fashion statement behind it. But listen, during that time too, people, younger generation don't understand the 80s and how competitive it was because the game was different. It was a lot more physical, it was a lot more half court outside of the way you guys played. Denver at the time liked to get the ball up the court, Seattle a little bit. But let's walk back through those battles, in particular with Boston, but you and Larry Bird. First, going into a game and when you know you had to come in and guard Larry Bird, walk me through that mindset of how you got yourself ready for that.
Well, first of all, let's go back a little bit more because the Larry Bird, Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers rivalry started with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird at Michigan State and Indiana State. So when they came into the league, that rivalry was about Magic and Bird. I just happened to get in the way because I was on the defensive aspect of it.
Mike, you go get him. Mike, you go get him.
It eventually turned into a Michael Cooper and Larry Bird. But no, that rivalry was so intense, man. And the one thing that we did, we didn't have the luxury of the technology they have today.
From the scouting.
You can get games all over the place. Back then, we had beta and VHS. So we used to, when Boston played at 4 o'clock, I would tape that because we were playing at 7:30. And it was just a matter of watching his games. When we weren't playing him, I was watching him. And I'm pretty sure he did the same with me. But, then after our game, I'd come home and watch him. So when I did get the opportunity to play against him, when it became the Lakers and the Celtics, and I knew what he was going to do almost before he did. That's how well we knew each other. And I knew what time he went to the restroom, what was his favorite meal, what was his socks, what color socks he was going to wear that day, was he going to wear green sneakers or what. I knew everything, Jim. So, that gave me an advantage, but still, he was one of the toughest guys to play because you know what? He was going to always do something to affect what was going on in that offensive game.
For our younger listeners who see tape of Larry Bird and they say, well, he couldn't jump, he was slow, non-athletic. What made Larry so tough?
He was never going to say never. He was very competitive. He was going to, like I said, always do something on the offensive end. I played against a young Michael Jordan. I played against George Gervin, one of the best. I played against Dr. Day, been dunked on by him, but we beat him more times than he dunked on me. And all those players, other than Larry, when they passed the ball, they had a tendency to kind of like stand and watch. And so I kind of knew where they were, and you can kind of get over there on the weak side and help out a little bit. With Larry, when he passed the ball, he wasn't standing. He was going to go either set a back pick for somebody. He was going to go get offensive rebound. He was going to make something happen on that offensive end. So you always had to pay attention to him when he had the ball and even when he didn't have the ball. And he was just always that way. And you know what? One of the greatest games I ever saw this guy play wasn't against us. It was against the Atlanta Hawks when him and Dominique went head to head. And every time down the floor, Larry had an input or he did something to help this team finally beat the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I tell you, I grew up in the 80s watching those battles and watching Larry. And it was a game of the week. One game, you had a chance to see Boston or the Lakers playing. You had Philly, of course. But it seemed so much bigger because you didn't have all of these outlets to be able to watch multiple games. So it made 10 or 20, basically. Put 10 on the 20 because it made it bigger. But I will say this, though. So when I got in the league, I held out my first year. But my second year, we played at the Spectrum. And I grew up a Dr. J fan and Philly fan. I went to that spot where he took off when he rocked the cradle.
And what you do there?
I was like, this dog coming through. And Coop was like this. I'm not going to lie. When we had shoot around, I went right to that spot on the opposite side of where we were at because it was by Philly's bench. And he rocked it. I was like,
Jimmy, listen, I'm gonna tell you something about that.
What? Yeah, let us know.
Had
Okay.
I been able to get turned around, because when he went in, I went up with my left hand. That's why I ducked out. Had I been able to turn around and get my right hand up, that would have been the greatest block of all time.
Hey, you know what they say about if, right? If a dog had a square butt, he'd boo-boo bricks. But I'm changing the language in that one.
JJ, listen. If you don't get dunked on, you might as well get dunked on by the greatest, man. And you know what? Yeah.
Okay, speaking of which, okay, defense. Okay, now let's fast forward just a little bit. A couple of things I want to take. You watch again because you've been a part of it, okay? And defensively, you kind of knew your opponent. You could be physical a little bit more. In today's game, with the freedom of movement and the spacing is a little bit different. So if you're guarding, let's say, a Steph, a Luka, what would you take away or try to take away to kind of limit, even a KD, try to limit what they do well? Like you said, you're not going to stop them.
Yeah. Well, for me, I would just get them and deny them. You know, you're going to have to make those guys work hard. Steph would be a little bit more harder because he moves around a lot. But again, that was one of the best things I did well was movement and just running around. So it would have been difficult. But if I could have gotten them out there and they catch the ball under 10 seconds, then you know something's ready to happen. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to force them to their opposite hand. Now, in today's game, Luka, Steph, KD, Booker, these guys can go well both ways. But you know what? I always want my defense to be on their shooting hand so at least they feel me a little bit. But it would be difficult to stop these guys today because you know what? They are shooting further out than they ever did before. They're utilizing, which I will soon see, watching before, a 4-point shot in the NBA. You got to give them guys that extra point for shooting way out there. But again, today's game would be hard. But I you know what? They would score, but it would be hard for them.
Speaking of today's game, with all that you kind of accomplished, and we'll get back to the Hall of Fame in a minute, but you wanted to make the transition, and when you did, coach a WNBA. What was the impetus behind that aspect of coaching professional female women's basketball?
You know what? I loved the way I've had 3 coaches my time with the Lakers, the only team I played with. We had Jack McKinney was our first coach, Paul Westhead was our second, and Pat Riley was the third coach. And I love the way Pat Riley handled us, the way he coached us. He made practice very, very hard, but he also made it fun. So just experiencing, I went up to Summer Pro League with the women. They had a Say No Classic up at USC. And I went up and I got an opportunity to see these women play. And I had a wonderful opportunity to coach probably the best woman that's ever played this game in Lisa Leslie. So when that became a reality, the WNBA, and given that opportunity, I jumped at it because, again, people say, you know, for a head NBA coaches, well, you don't have any head coaching experience. Well, how do you get experience? Somebody give you the opportunity. So the WNBA gave me my opportunity to coach. Full time, run my practices, get in game situations, and I really enjoyed it. And I treated these women, you know, I was trying to be kind of soft a little bit, but Lisa came up to me after our first practice. She said, "Coop, you coach us like you coach the guys, man." And that's what I did. And it started working out. And I had 14 great years coaching the WNBA, 10 years with the Sparks. And then I went to Atlanta and coached a young lady named Angel McCautry, who was like a Steph Curry at that time back then, who could definitely put the ball in the basket. So coaching the women was enjoyable. Really, really enjoyed it.
So besides the athleticism, what was the biggest difference that you saw between the women's game or the women's mentality and NBA? Women, like you said, athleticism, they don't play above the rim. So they have to use all the fundamental aspects of what Dr. Naismith meant this game to be about. 5 people working together to get a shot, 5 people working together to stop other teams, and 5 people working together just to win championships. And that's what we did. But I think the biggest 2 things I always felt I had the advantage that I loved about the WNBA. One was that the uniforms looked good on the women. You know, they weren't all sweaty and all of that. And then
too, which is the most important one, is they smell better when they come to the huddle. Women, they got perfume and they smell good, man. Right. Time out. Can y'all come on in? So.
Ain't nothing like a men's locker room too after the game, man. You like, man,
you know,
good Woo. Hey, man, but okay, so I get it, man. And the women's game has evolved so much. I mean, athletically, they've gotten better. Skill-wise, they've gotten so much better. Not that they weren't skilled, but all around, you kind of see it, the evolution of the post player being able to step out, guards being able to shoot from deep, the wings doing the same thing. It's amazing how it reflects the trends of the NBA in some aspect of how they've gotten better. So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to be a part of that evolution too. So I think it was very important. You, Bill Laimbeer, guys that were in the NBA were able to lend a little bit, especially championship advice to those women at the time.
And to build that foundation, you know, you got like back then we had Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, Cynthia Cooper, Lisa Leslie, Mawadi Mabika, and those players set the groundwork for what these players are achieving today. And it's nice to see a young lady like Asia Wilson just dominating in the post. You got Caitlin Clark coming in there, Angel Reese. You got, but you know what? JJ, they're getting ready to experience something that they never had. And that's that young lady at USC, Juju Watkins. Wait till she get up in there, man. She's going to take the league to a whole nother level. So she's going to be that Kobe Bryant kind of player that when she gets to the WNBA. But it is just a joy to see that league flourishing.
That is, man. I love watching it, too. From fun. When my son was younger, my older son that played at Wisconsin, I told him watch women's basketball from the perspective of fundamentals, left-hand pass, using the backboard, all these little things that sometimes you miss in the men's game, you find it in women's game. Okay, it's something I like to do. I call rapid fire, real quick. I know you got time constraints, but I want to hit a couple things. Okay, you ready? Most underrated Showtime Laker.
Most underrated Kurt Rambis.
Oh, yeah, Kurt Rambis. Okay, one rule that you would change in NBA today.
More physical play inside. Let them play a little harder.
Little harder. Okay, the Cooper loop or lockdown defensive stop, which felt better?
Lockdown defensive style. I know the NBA is all about scoring now, but I love when I can stop somebody from scoring.
All right. One current player today who would have thrived in the 80s.
Draymond Green. I think he could have played back then.
Even at his size, at that position.
Well, even at his size, he wouldn't be able to guard 4 or 5s in our league. But he 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4. But he wouldn't be able to guard Artis Gilmore, Kareem, or
he would be able to guard a 4 back then.
I think so. I think he could have dealt with Maurice Lucas.
No, Kevin McHale.
Kemp. Huh?
Kevin McHale.
I think so. Draymond's a big guy, man.
No, he is. But I'm talking about he gives up some. I'm not talking about the dog in him. So I know that part. You know, but from a size and physicality perspective, okay, you played it, so it's yours.
I think he would have. Okay. I think he would have been successful back then.
All right, so your Mount Rushmore of defenders at any position.
Joe Dumars, Bobby Jones, Dennis Rodman.
Okay.
Michael Cooper.
Okay.
Now I'm missing a couple people like Elijah Wan.
Okay. They go to 5 right there.
Yeah,
I mess with that. I mess with that. Before we get out of here, too, I got to touch on this because this is a moment. You know, when the Lakers retired your jersey, last January. What did that moment mean to you? Because now your name is up there. I mean, the jersey's up there with Kareem, with Magic, with West, and Kobe. What did that mean to you?
That meant all the hard work that I had ever done, going all the way back to high school, pays off. Coaches always tell you, "Oh, work hard, it pays off," and you do it, and you don't see the results, and eventually get there. But I really believe hard work pays off. And you know what? All the blood, sweat, and skin I left at the Forum, never played at the crypto arena. It made it all worthwhile. And what made it even better was my teammates, Magic, Worthy, Kareem, all of them were there, man.
And you said the Hall of Fame embodies your entire body of work from when you were younger all the way through, on and off the court. When it's all said and done, what do you want your body of work to say? And what is Michael Cooper's legacy?
You know what? That he came, when he put his uniform on, he came to play. He came to play hard, and he came to play with his team. It wasn't about individuality. It was about team, and teams win championships. And I just want that to be my legacy, is that this guy was a decent defensive player. He played hard. Every now and then he hit a jump shot. You know what? You can never ever, slack up on him.
Hey, so you hit some big shots during that run, during those 5 championships. So don't minimize that, because I watched it. But also to end it too with the book, and we touched on it briefly earlier. Just like you want people to get out of your Hall of Fame career, you want to leave something. With this book, what do you want people, in particular young people, when they read this book, see this book, to take away from?
Well, they're going to get the 5 Ds: determination, dedication, desire, discipline, and decision-making. And I want everybody that don't feel like they're appreciated or they're looked over to be inspired by this book, because, again, no matter what you're doing in life, if you just keep prodding, keep your head down, keep working hard, good things will happen for you, and you'll always come out a winner.
My man, this is why I wanted to have you on, because from one, I'm not as old as you, of course, but from someone that grew up watching you play and watching how you played the game and what you brought to the table, I hope younger people can understand the value of understanding your role, embracing your role, being the best at your role, and how that benefits the overall team as far as winning. And I tell you what, I truly love working with you in the Big Three. I get the chance to pick your brain over the summer, all the successes that you have, at Cal State right now, right? At Cal State LA. Cal State LA. Love to see you there on the sidelines, man. And I just keep doing you, keep being an inspiration, keep inspiring, brother. And those of us that know, we know what you brought to the table. So I appreciate you taking your time to come on the show today.
And Jimmy, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate those words, man. You've always been a solid brother to me. I've respected the way you played the game when you were in the NBA. And you know what? I respect you even more because I see you with your son. You're taking him around, showing him things, experiencing things, and showing him how to represent not only your family, but as just a young African-American kid in our society. And I want to appreciate you for that. But thank you, JJ.
Always, brother. Thanks, Coop.
Okay.
That's a Hall of Fame perspective from a Hall of Fame man. Michael, thank you for sharing your journey with us. For more incredible stories, make sure you check out his Showtime podcast with Michael Cooper. You can also pre-order his book on Amazon or wherever you get your books. You can also see him on the sidelines with Cal State LA Golden Eagles. Coop, it's been an honor, my man. Please go to IG, YouTube to find The Jim Jackson Show, or wherever you get your podcast to download or watch this show.